We're about to hear from President Trump in the cabinet room, making a lot of comments on all the issues of the day. Let's listen in as he talks now about the Mueller report and other issues. Let's listen.
Trade's coming along well. We're having a big meeting this afternoon. I think you folks are going to be at it for a little while at least. The vice premier is here and lots of top people from China. They very much want to make a deal. We'll see what happens. It's got to be a good deal. It's got to be a great deal. It's got to be a great look. We've been losing over many years, $4, $5, $600 billion a year. We're losing a few years ago, 200 routinely to China. We can't do that. We're going to turn it around. It's got to be a great deal. If it's not a great deal, we're not doing it. But it's going very well. Top officials are here. And, we're very well along on the deal. It's a very complex deal. It's a very big deal. It's one of the biggest deals ever made, maybe the biggest deal ever made. It'll be a great deal for our farmers. Technology, intellectual property theft, everything is covered. There's not a thing that's not covered. We could have made a quickie, but we're in a very good position. Our economy is way up. China's not way up. And we're going to either make a very good deal or we're not going to make a deal at all. But I think it looks like the deal is moving along very nicely. So I think you're going to meet me and we're going to say hello to the media for a little while, sometime after 2 o'clock. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, George. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of good things are happening with Mexico. Mexico understands that we're going to close the border or I'm going to tariff the cars. I'll do one or the other. And you probably start off with the tariffs. That'll be a very powerful incentive because Mexico has the strongest immigration laws anywhere in the world. They don't have courts like we do. We have a stupid system of courts. It's the craziest thing in the world. We could be the only country that has it. You put a foot on the property. You put a foot into the United States. Congratulations. Go get Perry Mason to represent you. You end up with a court case. And then they release you and you come back 4 or 5 years later, but nobody comes back. 2% come back. The not-so-smart ones come back. It's the most ridiculous system anyone's ever seen. And we have catch and release, and we have chain migration where somebody comes in and brings the whole family, bring them all, your grandparents, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins. The craziest thing I've ever seen, put in by Democrats. And the Democrats are going to straighten it out. And if they don't straighten it out, and I predicted this, I mean, I hate to see it, but at least I can say I was right. I told everybody, you have a national emergency at our border. And nobody even talks about drugs, the drugs that are flowing in. So for the last 4 days, and you actually have covered it to a very minor extent, Mexico has been capturing people and bringing them back to their countries at their southern border. They've been taking people under their very powerful laws. They have the right to do it, and they're bringing them back to where they came from. That's about 3 days now, I guess, since they heard I was going to close the border. But before I close the border, if Mexico, and we love Mexico, we love the country of Mexico, we have 2 problems. We have the fact that they allow people to pour in to our country. We have to stop them. Border Patrol's been incredible. ICE has been incredible. Law enforcement's been incredible. And the other problem is drugs. Massive amounts of, much of the drugs coming into our country come through the southern border in all different ways. Much of it where we don't have walls. The wall is under construction, by the way, large sections. We're going to be meeting, I think, on Friday at a piece of the wall that we've completed, a big piece. A lot of it's being built right now. A lot of it's being signed up right now by different contractors. It's moving along very nicely. But we need the wall. But we need lots of other things. So we need help from Mexico. If Mexico doesn't give the help, that's okay. We're going to tariff their cars coming into the United States. The other thing is because Mexico is such a big source of drugs, unfortunately, now we have China sending fentanyl to Mexico so it can be delivered into the United States. It's not acceptable. So the second aspect of it is, which you haven't heard before, is that if the drugs don't stop, Mexico can stop them if they want, we're going to tariff the cars. The cars are very big. And if that doesn't work, we're going to close the border. But I think that'll work. That's massive numbers of dollars. So if we don't see people apprehended and brought back to their countries, if we see these massive caravans coming up to our country right through Mexico, coming right through Mexico like nothing. Buses are even given to them. For the last 3 days, it hasn't happened since I said we're closing the border. The only thing, frankly, better but less drastic than closing the border is to tariff the cars coming in. And I will do it, just like you know I will do it. I don't play games. I'll do it. So we're doing it to stop people. We're going to give them a 1-year warning. And if the drugs don't stop or largely stop, we're going to put tariffs on Mexico and products, in particular cars. The whole ball game is cars. It's the big ball game. With many countries, it's cars. And if that doesn't stop the drugs, we close the border. Because Mexico last year, and over for many years, just like China, except China numbers are even bigger. And I don't blame China, and I don't blame Mexico if they can get away with it. I blame the people that used to sit in this seat, because they should have done something about it. And I'm not just talking about President Obama. I'm talking about many presidents. They should have done something about it. So if Mexico doesn't do what they can do very easily, apprehend these people coming in, and they can do it in a much more humane fashion, why should they walk up 2,000 miles and then be brought back? They can stop them right at their southern border, right where they come into Mexico. And they have unbelievable immigration laws where they have the right to do it, the most powerful in the world, as good as you can have. And they're going to do it. And if they don't do it, we're going to tax the cars. And if that doesn't work, we're going to close the borders. But we're also going to do something having to do with tariffs on drugs. Because not only are hundreds of thousands of lives a year being ruined in our country, but numbers of people are dying that you wouldn't believe. I mean, we'll lose 1 military personnel, and it's a front-page story. And yet we have 100,000 people. People don't even know the number. They say 77,000, they say 72,000. Any number they give, you can guarantee to raise it. And if the drugs don't stop, we're going to put tariffs on. It also costs our country at least $500 billion through our southern border, $500 billion. So we will put tariffs on if they don't apprehend, and ultimately we're going to give a period of time. But if in a year from now drugs continue to pour in, we're going to put tariffs on. Now, we have a deal, USMCA, it's all done. They're going to have to live with it, okay? They're going to have to live with it. I'm not trying to be unfair. They're going to have to live with it. The USMCA is a great deal for everybody. But this is more important to me than the USMCA. So they're going to have to live with it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Can you get the USMCA? John, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Whatever.
Please start moving.
Thank you. Thank you. Tell you one thing, it's a great deal. They don't pass it, it's purely political. That's all. The USMCA, everybody wants to see it passed. But we'll see. Whatever they want to do is okay with me. Thank you.
Actresses Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin among a group of parents expected in federal court in just a matter of hours from now, facing charges for their involvement in the college admissions fraud scandal. Carly Shimkus is here with the Fox News headlines 24/7, channel 115 on Sirius XM, and criminal defense attorney Bob Bianchi is here as well. Bob, we'll get your take in just a moment, but Carly, what happens today?
All right, well, about a dozen parents are expected to face a judge in Boston later today. Two of them, the faces of the scandal, Lori Loughlin, Felicity Huffman, they are both charged with the same thing, conspiracy to commit mail fraud and honest services mail fraud. But what they did was pretty different. Felicity Huffman accused of paying $15,000 to have her daughter's SAT scores tweaked. Lori Loughlin and her husband accused of paying $500,000 to get her two daughters on the crew team. Unclear if they are going to enter a plea, but according to prosecutors, 4 people have already agreed to or will plead guilty, and more charges against more people are expected to come out in the coming weeks.
So, Bob, we're reading here that some of these parents have come out swinging, trying to poke holes in the government's case. What would be their defense?
Well, the defense is that they didn't do it. There's not enough evidence to prove that they did it beyond a reasonable doubt. I know one of the defenses is my kid was handicapped and that this was not inappropriate, but those cases are a lot different than the two cases that we're discussing right now. The evidence seems to be extremely solid there. Lori Loughlin was accused of have spent $500,000 with respect to both daughters to be on the crew team, of which they've never done crew. They never did crew, and that looks like a really strong case with respect to both of them. And I'm going to tell you, as a prosecutor, a person who led an agency and how we look at these things, the power and influence that they used, using money to take undeserving people over those who are qualified, those who worked hard.
But what law was broken in her case?
They've committed bribery. They've committed fraud. They've used the mail services. That's what the federal government is saying, in order to perpetrate that crime. And the way prosecutors are going to be looking at those kind of crimes is, you try to take advantage. You're like an armed robber. Your arms were filled with cash. It's a little different, in order to give it to other people so that you could take away and rob from those kids who deserve to be in those classes of serious crime.
She's been going to her yoga classes.
Yeah.
She's been wearing her bright pink outfits, and she's smiling. She's signing autographs. Like, is there a chance she's off the hook here, or what kind of time is she possibly facing?
Sandra, this is another great question. Prosecutors are watching. They're looking, and if I were her defense attorney, I'd say, stop putting on such a great public face, because it looks like you have no remorse. It looks like you don't care. It's all part of the arrogance that led you to believe that you could pay people off in order to give your kids something you don't deserve. Be remorseful, stay out of the public eye, and maybe the prosecutors will show you some mercy. Prediction, jail time of this. Listen, I'd say there are a little bit different cases. One's $500,000, one's $15,000, but I would suggest, and this is just spitballing right now, they face up to 20 years right now on the charges. If it goes to grand jury, they have escalating plea offers. It's going to get worse. So they got to plead guilty prior to the grand jury if the evidence is sufficient. I'd say 18 months to 2 years.
Oh, my gosh. Well, whether or not that ends up being the reality for them, their lives are forever altered. And we bring them up in the same sentence, but this has affected them very differently. Lori Loughlin has had a brutal time. She's the one that lost her Hallmark job. Her daughter lost the sponsors. She has faced more of a public scrutiny, I think, because of her image was so wholesome before, and her husband is involved, whereas Felicity Huffman...
She was Aunt Becky.
Yeah, that's right. Felicity Huffman still has 2 Netflix projects that could still come out. And William H. Macy.
But can I just make a point about this? And this is, we debate this in the criminal justice system all the time. Those who don't have anything, that don't have education, that grow up in impoverished areas, that are poor, that don't have access to great lawyers, they go to jail all the time. This is the argument that we talk about for thefts of $100,000, $75,000, $50,000. There's no way a prosecutor is going to let people that are privileged, that had everything at their fingertips, get away with the idea that they robbed from those deserving kids that didn't have those benefits. That's how prosecutors see things.
Yeah.
Federal Court, Boston, Massachusetts today. Thank you, Carly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.